Michael Penix Jr. established himself as a top 15 pick at his pro day.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He writes for Inside the Huskies of Fan Nation and Sports Illustrated. I'm the site editor over with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen today. And this episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. You can check them all out today at nissanusa.com. So, Lars, busy day. No reason to wait around. Let's get right into it. Michael Penix Jr. established himself as a top 15 pick in the 2024 NFL draft. And hey, he's got to give a little shout out to us in the process. As during his 40-yard dash, he timed at a 4.46 unofficial, which is the time that you and I had sitting there, confirmed by a couple other people. I had multiple other people walk up to me and say, hey, yeah, what did you have him at? We had him at a 4.46. So not alone in that process either. Shout out to the NFL for using our time and everything like that as well. But between that, his 36.5-inch vertical jump, and you can't get too wrapped up into it, but with his impressive just day throwing the ball as well, where it looked like he tweaked a couple of things mechanically and kind of listened to the NFL, had a little bit more of a compact release. He's going to be a top 15 pick at this point. He has to be.
Yeah, I mean, this process has played out exactly how we both thought it would for Michael Penix, where once the evaluators get to see him, checks the box at Indy, does his pro day, gets his body right, even just a little bit. Again, to your point, his body was already right. It's just tweaking it just a little bit, those couple little bit of changes. And that, I mean, again, Penix has all the tools for everybody saying, oh, I don't know, he's not that good of a passer, or okay, again, nobody's going to credit him for saying he's like Johnny Manziel with his legs. But again, he showed today, hey, look, and he's had the tweet on Wednesday where, look, just because I don't run doesn't mean I can't. Like, and right. I remember it's the same thing we said against Utah, where it's like, look, when I need to run, I can, but I don't need to because I'm such a good passer. And by the way, passer is job 1A, 1B, and 1C as a quarterback. Now, you still need to have some elusive ability and kind of escapability, if you will. And that's good that he showed that. But I mean, today, I think it was more about the other thing that stood out was NFL scouts really kind of seemed like, wow, when you watch him in person, the ball just jumps out of his hands. Like it's even more impressive in person. And it's like, well, I guess we've been kind of biased because we've seen it in person for 2 years.
Exactly.
But it's like, don't just watch the tape. Just when you see him in person, you will understand who Michael Penix is. And that's what he did today.
So I'm glad you said that, because one scout that I was having a conversation with just over the course of the day was somebody who told me that he had been traveling all up and down the West Coast, went to USC's pro day, went to Oregon's pro day. And he said, yeah, no, like Caleb's a little bit different, where that's just like a whole different beast, but he wasn't even out there for himself. Michael Penix was out here to make himself some money today. And he absolutely did that, where when I compare like all those three guys, Mike has a little bit more of a question, like, is he able to throw the ball at different speeds and not just have the fastball all the time so he can get it up and over defenders over the middle of the field. But for the most part, like, just watching the ball fly out of his hands, it's exactly what you said, Lars. That's what the scout said to me, is that it's different. Watching him in person, just you really do get the feeling of exactly what you and I have been saying all year, that you just need to watch this guy in person and you will understand where all the hype is. And for people who are saying, oh, JJ McCarthy, oh, Jayden Daniels, no, Michael Penix should be the third quarterback off the board. He won't be, but he absolutely should be.
I was going to say it's the same thing with the Heisman discussion, where he probably should win the Heisman. He won't, for whatever reason you want to call it. But, and again, probably a lot of it was, hey, maybe Jayden Daniels is a better runner and more just an overall better player. And then when you look at the two, I mean, Michael Penix is always the better quarterback, right? Pure and simple, better passer than Jayden McDaniels. Jayden
Daniels. Wrong guy.
Right, exactly. Wrong score, right guy. But it just, to me, it's always been a case of Michael Penix is always just going to kind of let the process play. It's basically how he won the job at Washington, how he won 25 games at Washington, which was, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be me, I'm going to do what I do, I'm going to listen to other people around me. I don't have the ego that, other quarterbacks in the draft might have, where, I don't need to go to that team, or I don't want to do this or that. No, Penix showed up, showed out, and I think it's exactly what he's going to do in the NFL. Now, again, does he need to find maybe a certain fit? Maybe, maybe not. But I think as a passer, he can make anybody better, make any receiver set better. So I don't think in that regard he hurt himself in the slightest. And honestly, it's just been I think we both kind of knew he was probably a top 15, top 20 pick, but it's now, like you said in the opener, it's cemented. There's no question about it. If he gets beyond 20, there's something wrong.
Absolutely. So I want to read you a little bit of a conversation that I had with another scout who was not there today, but before leading up to the 40-yard dash, we were discussing it. And that this scout said that he'd heard that Penix was being timed around a 4.58. Then he runs 4.46. And some other scouts had him between 4.52, 4.58, but we're going to use the best time available to us, which is also the one that we happen to have. So we're going with that 4.46. And just, I won't use the actual term because it's wholly expletive. Is exactly what I was told when I shared the information that I had gathered. And one thing that I heard was it's time for the NFL to stop doubting him, which is word for word what the scout said to me. It's time for the NFL to stop sleeping on him because Jayden has his ups and downs. JJ McCarthy has his ups and downs. Bo Nix has his ups and downs. So does Michael Penix. Absolutely. But when you look at the upside that he possesses, it's as high as any of those guys. And this particular person does have Michael rated as the number 3 quarterback on his board. So it's something where it was really nice to just see him be able to continue to improve his stock because the 40-yard dash and the throwing are what people are going to talk about. But he showed his overall athleticism with his 36.5-inch vertical jump as well. And he said that he wasn't satisfied with that. He said that he knows he can hit 38 when he was talking to the media afterwards. And just the work ethic that he has and combining all of these things with the fact that is still like crazily flying under the radar, that his medicals all came back clear in Indianapolis. More people need to be talking about that, where every time he comes up in a conversation, still, the injury history. Yeah, that's fair. And that's something we're certainly going to talk about with the next person that we have when we discuss Dillon Johnson, some news that we were able to break on Thursday. But the injury history is always going to be like a factor, but the fact that his medicals came back clear should say everything that it needs to, and that Mike deserves to be picked in the top 15 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the people that were beating the drum about, Penix going into, let's say, October, November, December, his injury history, people that have been beating that drum previously during the season or even after the season need to be beating that drum equally as hard after Indy. And the problem is they're not. Yeah. They're just, now some people are, right? They're saying, hey, look at Michael Penix, but it's like, it's almost like, but everybody else is mentioned, to your point, JJ McCarthy, Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix, even, there's so many other quarterbacks. And it's like, but they're really, like, those guys are kind of in that 4, 5, 6 range. But when you compare all three, no doubt, Caleb Williams number 1, Drake May, certainly
Drake
probably
May is definitely number 2. Definitely number 2.
So there's a gap between those two and Mike, but then there's still a gap between Mike and the other 3. So it's like, to me, it's almost like you need 3 separate tiers, all of which could go early, first round, maybe some of those guys probably second round, early second round. But the point being, Michael Penix has done everything he needed to do, did not really do a lot of talking, just let the action show it out. And now he's starting to, I was talking with somebody about this where it's like, okay, you can give him the publicity. You don't have to just like, we still don't want to overhype him too much. It's like, well, I'm looking at JJ McCarthy being the best thing since Andrew Luck. So don't be afraid to hype Michael Penix up now that he's got a clean medical. And I think that, to your point, is once Indy came back clean, there should have been no problem. But the people, again, we'll still like, he's not the injury history. Keep moving. That's fine. Keep moving. You can mention it. It's worth at least acknowledging.
It has to be a factor, but it has to be as big a factor. Yes.
Well, it has to be followed up with, hey, he had the injury history and he's been healthy for 3 years now. 2.5, 3 years. Like that to me is like, if you're going to add the first, you have to add the second. And a lot of people are still forgetting the second. But I think the closer we get into April and obviously the closer we get to the draft, I think more and more people are going to say, wow, Penix actually, hey, you know what? Still passing all the medicals. Okay, now we can put him up a week before the draft in the mid-first round. It's like probably where it should have been from the beginning, if we're being real.
Yes. No, you're 100% right. And with that being said, Dillon Johnson played that Pac-12 championship game, led that legendary performance. He did that on a broken foot. And we'll get to that right after a message from our good friends over at Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions at Manscaped. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Clear out that winter bush with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and watch your confidence bloom like the springtime flowers. Embrace the season and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our special offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code LOCKEDON for 20% off plus free shipping. Their 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blades. Blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. It also features dual LED spotlights to guide you through the darkest winter debris. Navigate with confidence into your delicate areas. Hate making a mess? Not to worry. This bad boy is waterproof. You can shave in the shower, in the bath, or in the ocean. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little spring cleaning in your pants. Shout out to Manscaped for just the best ad reads. We also got to give a shout out to our good friends over at Better Together. Is your bracket busted? Do you want to stay in the game? Introducing Better Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs and you can play with your friends, not against them. All you got to do is you pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds, and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the social DFS movement. Better Together is the first cooperative daily fantasy platform. Better Together provides a sense of camaraderie and enhances the social experience of watching sports and makes you realize that DFS is fun alone, but like a lot of other things, it's better with friends. It's a way to stay connected with your friends when you can't watch sports together in person, and puts your group chat to the test and lets you prove yours is the best. You can download Better Together now from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON for a chance to win your share of over $1,000 in cash prizes. Play with me with the contest on Friday. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. So Lars, you kind of hinted at this a little bit on our Thursday show, which I respect, but hey, yeah, a little bit. So I had multiple sources tell me back in December that Dillon Johnson played the Pac-12 Championship Game on a broken foot. So I decided to do some investigating, and I did some, and I was able to come up with a little bit here and a little bit there. So we've been sitting on it. And then on Thursday at the Pro Day, I got a chance to talk to Dillon for the first time since the national championship game. And I got him to tell me the full story. And so let's just take you through it. Let's take the long version, which you can also check out over at Huskies Wire, where I did share the whole version as well. So in Washington's 22-20 win down in Corvallis against Oregon State, Dillon Johnson got removed from the game in the fourth quarter where he suffered a foot injury. He broke his right foot. He told me that the exact injury was he suffered a fracture in his right foot. And he did not miss a game after that. He rushed for 21 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown against the Washington State Cougars in the Apple Cup 7 days later. And then 6 days after that, he took 28 carries for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Plus, he added a passing touchdown. And then he also added the 20-yard game-sealing run on 3rd and 17 to give the Huskies a 34-31 win over the number 5 Oregon Ducks. His performance was already just legendary, one of the best in Husky history, to send them to the college football playoff, to end up sending them to the national championship after they beat Texas. But this just adds a whole other level of how incredible that performance from Dillon Johnson was inside Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas.
Oh, without question. And I mean, it goes back to his time, honestly, at Ole Miss, where he had that knee injury and came back, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks later. It was pretty quick. And I think that's the thing. That's what I asked Dillon, I know before you guys had talked to him, where I said, if teams kind of picked up on your toughness, right? Like, and the teams are, what he said is teams were surprised that he even ran. And so it's like, okay, well, I think Dillon is kind of just a guy that continues to prove people wrong. And it's almost like a story of every single player on this team at this point, right? Where it's like on some level, they're all doubted. I mean, maybe not Rome, maybe not Troy, but like most of these guys have at one point or another been doubted, and they just continue to check the boxes. And I think it was honestly cool to see Dillon. And again, we knew in that national championship game where we said what, 50% at best. He was probably more like 35.
And that's something that he like. That was another thing that we talked about after. He said one of the first things he said to me was after we talked about the foot. He said, "Man, you should have seen my ankle after that game. It was," and he just kind of went like this. He was like, "Yeah, it was like this big around. It was really really bad because he suffered a high ankle sprain, which he told us in the locker room after the game. But just it's like you said, it's the credit to his toughness. He said he's still not fully healed for all the injuries that he suffered. Like you said, when he said that teams were surprised that he ran. Yeah, no, 100%. Where it was kind of clear that he was still dealing with that. He said he's still in the recovery process and should be good to go by the time, mini camp start up in June or July. But it's so impressive to think about everything that he did. And it adds so much more to what was already not only a really impressive season for him, but one that was hampered by an injury at the start where he was still coming off a knee injury that he suffered at Mississippi State. And they really slow played his comeback from that, missing the Tulsa game. And he was able to ramp it up and he talked to us at length about how acupuncture had helped him out. And then to suffer another injury was really tough to see for somebody who you and I both really love talking to. He's just such a good, kind person. Just to see him have to suffer through injuries like that really does kind of suck in a sense from just knowing his backstory, knowing the person that he is. But then just to see how he doesn't let it affect him on the field for the most part is truly incredible.
Yeah, no, and that especially at the running back position where you could say, hey, you know what, I'm kind of getting abused here. Like I need to sit this game out or this game out. It's like, well, no, we're chasing a national championship. And Dillon knew when he came to Washington, he was the icing on the cake to get to a national championship. And basically, look what happened. I mean, that's to a degree what happened. I mean, obviously had a massive impact in the Pac-12 Championship game and in the game against Texas even a little bit more. But whether he ran for 100 every game or not, it was just he was going to be the only capable back after Cam Davis went down. Like once Cam Davis's injury happened, had they not gotten Dillon out of the portal, we're not even talking about a Pac-12 championship, I don't think, because at that point you're looking at the roster and thinking there's nobody in this with a pulse that's going to. I mean, Tybo, I respect. Daniel and Goddard didn't get some chance, but anything, nobody was going to touch what Dillon did, and it's all around as a pass blocker, as a pass catcher, even though he wasn't utilized as much there, as a runner. And just as an overall teammate. And I mean, he was honestly like kind of one of the heartbeats of the team, of the offense, but the unsung one, right? Where it's like, hey, when we need him, he somehow delivers. And again, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and then breaks one for a big one. I think the fact that he had 28 carries still just let that sink in for people. Like
it's incredible.
28 carries on a broken foot and a bum ankle is nothing short of insane. And then still played 2 more games after that?
Yep. Played in both games and obviously wasn't as effective in either game where Texas's run defense definitely did its job, but he still scored 2 touchdowns in that game. Got injured again at the end of that game where it looked, he wasn't able to confirm what that was, but it was certainly looked like some sort of re-aggravation of that same foot injury. And then, suffers, like we said, suffers that high ankle sprain. And it's like, I'm sure there are going to be questions about his health moving forward, but there should be absolutely zero questions about his toughness. And Lars, like you said, you're right, where he was brought in to not have to have that full workload. And then, of course, the injury to Cam Davis happens. So everything changes. And the way he was able to step in and everything he was able to do under those circumstances was so incredibly impressive that all you can do is just kind of look at it. And while he was only here for 1 season, and I love the kid. I really do. He's not going to go down as one of the greatest running backs in Husky history, but his season and who he is as a person and everything that he meant to this team and the impact that he made on this program should absolutely just have him mentioned among just the greats to play the position here at the University of Washington, even though his stats, since he wasn't here for 3-4 years, won't ever back that up.
Right, exactly. But I mean, in terms of like what he came here to do, he nothing short of succeeded at it. Like same thing with Penix, same thing with a bunch of the other guys that came in, where it's like, hey, you came in here to do a job, and he did a job. You didn't run for over 1,000 yards in 3 seasons at Mississippi State. Runs for over 1,100, 1,200, 1,100
yep.
at least.
Right? Over 1,100, yeah.
And 10 plus touchdowns. I mean, if I would have told you that's what Dillon gives you with or without Cam Davis, you're taking that 10 out of 10 times. And so I think what Dillon, again, I totally agree. Dillon will not be the Myles Gaskin. Dillon won't be the Corey Dillon. But those other guys in this new era of college football where, hey, we just need a 1-year mercenary who honestly cares about the team and the program and isn't just in it for the money. That was exactly Dillon to a T. He was a great teammate, great guy with the media. Dude was hilarious with the media. Still is.
Oh, but yeah, we love talking to him.
And think about that. He had every reason not to be, right? He had every reason to be like, hey, you know what? I'm kind of sore today. I got to go get some treatment. I got to do this. That. No, dude, he would wait 5-10 minutes just for some other people to get done. Like, hey, you guys want to talk now? Yeah, we can talk now.
So one story that I remember was you and I were talking to him in the lead up to the Sugar Bowl, where it was like the last week of media availability before Christmas break and before everything else. And he took an extra 5-10 minutes. None of it was on the record, but we just talked. And one of my favorite parts of that conversation was he was wearing like these really great, like fuzzy Christmas socks. And he was like, yeah, a lot of the guys have been like giving me guff for this and making fun of me, but I love these, man. They're so comfortable. And that's just the kind of person that he is and always will be. And we're going to try to get, as we are with a whole lot of these other guys, we're going to try to get him on the show soon to make sure that he's going to be able to show his full personality, just who he is, because he's just one of the, not just one of the best interviews on the team, just one of the best people on a roster that you and I consistently talked about as a roster full of fantastic personalities. His shined. And while, Michael Penix and Odunze and the receivers and some of these other ones might have been like the glue that helped bring the team together, Dillon added an extra layer. And not just with who he was on the field, but who he is off the field, just was an extra just boost that this team, I don't want to say it needed, but it certainly used. And as, when we look back on this run, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line, Dillon Johnson is somebody who should certainly be remembered as one of the biggest cogs in that whole performance. And just being able to tell that story is something that's really amazing, that he did all that to send Washington to the Sugar Bowl, because as amazing as that game was, I don't know if they make it there without his performance, the way he was able to kill the clock and the way he was able to just run down that Oregon defense all night on a broken foot.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, going back to what I said earlier, look at the room. Like, Tybo's not doing that. I mean, Tybo's probably your best bet to get that first down, but a freshman in that situation, I don't know how confident we are. The odds are going to be plus probably 450, 500 for him to get that first down, you think?
I would go longer, and that's not just him, with basically anybody else. Like, even if you want to like put Rome, Jayden, and Polk into that, where there's still a very, very just long shot to get that first down. And Lars, with that being said, let's get into some of the other just highlights that we saw from Thursday's Pro Day. Right after a message from our friends over at Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The North Carolina Tar Heels can only be described as an armada. This one seed is as hardcore as it gets out there, so it's no wonder they secured a spot in the Sweet 16 this Thursday tonight. If as we record this at 3:30 on a Thursday afternoon against the Alabama Crimson Tide in the NCAA tournament, they are a favorite, picked by many to make a run for the championship. You can take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. You can do all that by shopping at NissanUSA.com. So Lars, what else stood out to you about Thursday's Pro Day? Because there was a lot that was, you and I were just doing our thing, talking to people behind the scenes, just surveying a lot of what was going on. What are some of the things that stood out to you that the everydayers need to know about?
Well, Taylor, I think one of them, I don't know if it's a misconception, but Roger Rosengarten clearly did some sort of testing today. I saw, or at least some workout of some.
He did the on-field workouts, yeah.
Which I think to me was more or less getting back to the callback on Wednesday's show, which we previewed the Pro Day, which that's what I wanted to see, right? And what I found out is he's been working out with Joe Staley, the former 49ers offensive lineman.
Oh, wow.
And so now I
was not there for that. Yeah,
so now I wonder where that late first round consideration comes, where he's going to go train with him again before the draft. And so again, when you just look at what Rodgers' ability to do, he didn't need to do any quote unquote testing, but anytime you can get in front of scouts on the field, and we can talk about a couple of the guys that we know for a fact had the same scenario, where if a scout says, "Hey, I want to see you do this," you don't have to run, you don't have to test, you don't have to jump, but I need to see you work out. I'm there. And that's exactly what Rodgers done every single time he's been asked to do something. Senior Bowl, any time he's had to do something, he's not only done it but passed with flying colors. And so I think there's a lot of these guys where after today, they're going to get a bump up in their grade, or they're going to get a bump up in some way, shape, or form. Penix, no doubt a first rounder. I think Roger should be a first rounder. I can see a scenario in which it goes both ways, but like I think after today, knowing who he's had as his coaches and just kind of the understanding of the offensive line position as a whole, just 1 through 5 that he knows, there's no reason he's not a talent as a first round pick. Now, again, fit, team needs, X, Y, and Z. There's other reasons why he might fall to, I mean, Budda Baker was a 33rd overall pick, right? So you can't tell me that 36, right? But you can't tell me that some of these guys are not worthy of being first round picks that end up being second round picks. But Roger really, I think, impressed me today with what he was able to do.
So I couldn't agree more with you there, but let's talk about one of those other guys that you hinted at that definitely raised their stock and was asked to do so by scouts, and that's safety Dominique Hampton, where not only did we hear that right now he's got somewhere between a round 3 and round 4 grade, as that's what he's being projected at, but another thing was that he was asked to do some of the on-field workouts, and it's something where in this really deep, especially a corner defensive backs group, you got to find any way that you possibly can to stand out. And that's something that Dom did, where he definitely impressed in the on-field workouts. One thing that I will say that our good friends Alex Katzen and Ben Glassmeyer, who also write over at Huskies Wire, noticed was that the scout that was throwing during the drills was not necessarily the best, and missed a lot of throws and didn't necessarily get a chance to show Dom's full range of athleticism and everything else that he might have been hoping to do, just in terms of ball skills, some of those other things, but. It was really impressive to see him do the workout, hear that the New England Patriots actually were the team that asked him, hey, please make sure that you go through and do all these drills and do this and do that. Where that's really interesting to hear, because he's somebody who is just a super talented athlete. And the more that we look at him through this process, we've seen Daniel Jeremiah hype him up as somebody that he was really looking forward to watching at the combine. And then the more that he looked at it, the more they kind of just went through the process. He's definitely established himself as somebody who has a promising future in the NFL, both on defense and probably on special teams as well.
No doubt. I think special teams are probably where he might start out more. I mean, same thing with kind of Miles Bryant, where, similar sort of path where, again, ended up finding a role in this Patriots secondary, but needed to kind of work on special teams to get to that opportunity. And that's a lot of what, you have 53 bodies, plus I know they expanded the roster a little bit. But a lot of those guys that are, let's say, 45 through 53, you kind of got to be a special teams just to make your mark, just to show the coaches, hey, if I can do it on special teams, maybe I can do it on defense, right? And I think with Dom having 2+ years as a starter under his belt, again, spot starter, depending on which depth chart you want to look at, which year. Sure. But I would say a consistent 2-year starter, impact guy who I think with his size and coachability and kind of projectability, the same thing that Steve Belichick talked about with evaluating high school guys. Well, hey, look, Dom has a projectable body in the NFL, and that's something where, okay, no matter whether you're the Patriots or whoever, there's plenty that you can do with that guy, especially in a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick. I mean, probably sure, 3rd highest. I think 4th is pretty good for him. 3rd, 4th. If he's a 5th round pick, it's a steal. So there's so many of these guys where it's like, I mean, again, where do they go? I think it's more the question, not do they go. These guys are all going to go. It's a question of where and when.
So one in that same vein, somebody that definitely needs to be discussed is another guy that we brought up a lot on our preview show, and that's Bralen Trice, where I'm not concerned. And Ben Glassmeyer and I were talking about this. Shout out to him, as he was a fantastic guest on our Thursday show. We're not concerned at all about his testing numbers, where during all the on-field drills, he displayed a lot of bend, displayed a lot of power, just everything that you're looking for, where he's one of those guys where I don't like using this comparison, because this is what everybody's going to be looking for now when it comes to the wide receiver position, where it's, Puka Nacua wasn't necessarily like the best overall tester, but look at what he was on the football field. Now everybody's looking for the next Puka Nacua, which is annoying, and that's its own thing. Shout out to Puka. We love Puka. But everybody is now going to be looking for that next guy, when it's, no, he's one of one because of all these reasons that he shows on tape. And that's what Bralen Trice is as well, where his testing numbers are going to make some teams go, we're not sure if we're as high on him as we might have been. But then you look at him on the field and you say, no, This is a guy who led the nation in quarterback pressures 2 years in a row. And you look at everything that he's put on film, everything that he was able to do on the field today on Thursday, and you say, yeah, even if he's a second, third round pick at this point in time, and if he falls any farther, that's definitely just going to be a steal for somebody. But when you look at just everything that he is able to show on film on the field, that's somebody who's going to be a productive edge rusher at the NFL level.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, I think, for Bralen came down to just body size and his weight. Like, hey, he was a little under, a little over. Now I think he's almost right around. I think he's about 3 to 5 pounds off what he wants to play at. But I think what we saw today was the more natural Bralen, where I remember telling, I don't know if it was a scout or I will say the Falcons had some pretty high up guys there too. So there was a lot of teams there that
there were a lot of people there today. Yeah.
Like, I remember somebody told me that had been up at UW for many years now. This is the most that it's ever been. And I think in my time covering UW, it's certainly I'd say 2017 might get close, just again, depending on subjectability. But with the quarterback and everything, I don't mean Brian Dable's there. You got decision makers left and right.
John Schneider was there. Ryan Grubb was there.
I was almost going to say not even counting John Schneider because he's the drive over from Renton. But it's still worth noting that he's there. But again, having other coordinators and coaches and GMs and executives come from the East Coast all the way to Seattle for this pro day, there's going to be a lot of guys going pretty early in the first couple of rounds here.
And speaking of which, one thing to note on that before we get out of here, just to your very point, is Rome Odunze is not falling outside of the top 10. Like, it doesn't matter how this draft falls. He's not falling outside of the top 10. He told us that he's got top 30 visits lined up with 4 teams. It's the Cardinals, the Giants, the Jets, and the Bears. So he's not falling outside the top 10. And one little nugget that I feel like we can leave all the everydayers with here is, I don't know if Troy Fautanu does either. And we'll get into that more on another show, but just from a source that I spoke with, I have a feeling Troy Fautanu might be the number 10 overall pick to the New York Jets. And Lars, with that being said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the everydayers for tuning in. We really do appreciate your constant support every day. Like we said, we've got so much fun stuff planned for the rest of the offseason. Spring football is starting next week. We're really excited to get back out there and bring you guys so much fun content from that as well. So please make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, we're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel with new content every single day. So please make sure you leave a like on the video. Hit that little bell so you make sure you never miss when we post a video, because sometimes we go live. We got so much stuff to talk about. Leave us a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it really does help the show out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on